Hello, everybody. This is Vicky Jeter, and I'm representing Louisville Center for Spiritual Living. And this video is our introduction video to our midweek inspiration. And each week, the midweek inspiration could be a little different. And so, especially with the onset of doing virtual Sundays, which is going very well for us, sometimes the midweek video will be the presentation portion of what we did on Sunday, and sometimes the midweek inspiration will be unique, done by a practitioner such as myself or one of our other practitioners, depending on what's happening and how things are changing in this very fluid environment that we're experiencing right now. So we just want to let you know that it will start with this introduction, and then just following it will be something very unique each week. And we hope you enjoy it. And if you have any questions, or if you would like to be in more consistent contact with Louisville Center for Spiritual Living, you can email me at Vicky B. Jeter, that's V-I-C-K-Y, B as in boy, J as in Jack, E-T-E-R, @gmail.com. Thank you.
They light it before we start, other than trying to move around in this small space. But our candle is lit and our tone is set. Come on, let's get together. And we are all thinking about that in one way or another. How do we bring people into our lives together? How does the nation heal and come together? And it's all of these things that we bring into our intent this morning, knowing that it is Spirit who offers the answers, who offers the encouragement and the comfort. We know it, we celebrate knowing it, and we let it be. And so it is. Okay, this morning is a little different. I've handled the welcome. I'm about to turn it over to Tammy, who's going to do the reading. And then Vicky is going to give a talk and do the leading of our conversation. And I'm done for now. I'm just congregant. So, and that's just fine. So welcome. Glad you're here. If you were here last week, then you know what Vicky's going to be continuing to talk about today. So that's it for me. Tammy, you now have the
Thank you.
The mic.
Last Wednesday, my youngest grandchild, who by the way just graduated from Bellarmine and is 22 years old, called me on the phone. What am I going to do, Yanni? How am I going to apply for a job? How am I going to continue my education? How am I going to have a life? 22 versus 73, I thought, oh, my baby girl. But anyway, I believe in synchronicity. Thursday morning, I woke up, and what was the reading but the power of decision? So that's what I've chosen to read today, because all of us feel the same way as my little granddaughter does. Ooh, should I go out to a restaurant? Will that be safe? Should I go shopping to buy me a new dress? Will that be safe? We've got a lot of decisions to make ourselves. So I hope this rings good for you all. In any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing. And the worst thing you can do is nothing. Theodore Roosevelt. After the intellect has made this decision, then the imagination is called into play and the game of living commences. Ernest Holmes. In the quote above, former U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt affirms the power of decision making. If you freeze in the face of a big decision or by fear of making mistakes, then you will miss your opportunity for a quantum leap forward. Mavericks like Roosevelt know life is a creative field that necessarily includes making mistakes. They also know how to enter into the still center of our turning world to quiet their ruffled mind. President Roosevelt realized indecision is far worse than the wrong decision. While inaction gives rise to the weeds of fear, discouragingly before attaining a positive outcome. Decisions may be painful, however. Pain is part of life. The right attitude is to see this as a growing pain. Our greatest growth will arise from our best decisions. Conversely, indecisiveness is too flimsy a wall to protect us from the harsh winds of failure. A failure to decide is to abdicate the power to make a decision, to take charge of our lives. Roosevelt knew the best result comes from your best decision. You can test this for yourself. The affirmation, may you find the courage to make your best decision in every challenge and grow commensurately with your courage. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. That was beautiful and so setting the stage for what I want to offer this morning. Good morning to each and every one of you. It so touches my heart for us to come together in this spiritual communion as we continue to be spirits having this incredible human experience. So I just want to introduce a little bit of an overview of what I want to share today. There are two themes that are introduced here. My purpose in picking this selection is what is it that we can do? And as we ask ourselves that question, where do we look that we haven't looked before? Because especially I know in our community, we're forward-thinking seekers. We're not afraid of self-reflection. We practice. And so what more can we possibly do? And so as I present this, and there are several pieces from different people that I'll be mentioning, the backdrop is lending to how do we look at what we possibly haven't looked at before in a new way so that we can know what we can do in consciousness and in action. And I came to the bulk of what I'm using as a resource today comes from our Centers for Spiritual Living minister, Jim Lockard, who is the minister of the Baltimore Center for Spiritual Living. And he has just a fabulous website and blog that he's been maintaining predominantly right now, supporting the kinds of questions that we all have. And I got there by Googling Ernest Holmes and racism. And not surprisingly, a great deal of resources came up around Ernest Holmes and race consciousness because of all of the contributions of Dr. Ernest Holmes. Among them, the most powerful was his revelations around race consciousness, which deals with what goes into the subconscious. And just briefly, before I start, race consciousness are those things, positive or negative, as we look at them, that are in common to family groups or to spiritual groups or to the whole world. There are certain things that come into an awareness, and when we put the emotion behind them and it comes to be a belief, and it comes to be a belief that pretty much everyone in a particular group agrees to, then that goes into the realm of race consciousness and can be so rooted that we're not consciously aware of it any longer. And then the other piece that comes up is the cycles of addictive behavior. And that might not make sense right now, but for any one of you who have been benefited by
breaking addictive cycles in your families, I think some of this will make some sense. And I'm suggesting that this is one way as we all move forward to kind of keep in mind what we've learned from 12-step programs. I want to start with just a couple of brief quotes that I found along the way. The person who has the most to do with what happens to you in life is you. Living in a pluralistic society, which means accepting multiple ideas, it is absolutely crucial that we learn how to sit down together and share beliefs and perspectives without attempting to force our ideas on each other. That's Dr. Ben Carson, who ran for president in the last presidential election. Life is best when we build bridges between people, not walls. That's Muhammad Ali. And now we're into the material of Jim Lockard. Here we are again. Actually, here we still are, seemingly eternally, in the throes of racial injustice in the United States. The sadness, anger, bewilderment, and grieving continue and expand. Perhaps we had set racism to the side so that we could deal with the coronavirus or with the divisive politics. But here again, these struggles are right in our faces. The flashpoints this time said with sacredness, Ahmaud Arbery jogging in a park. George Floyd in Minneapolis. Breonna Taylor in Louisville, Kentucky. And David McAtee in Louisville, Kentucky, who lost their lives senselessly to bring this to light. Already, the usual comments are coming forth from all sides, and yes, there are many sides to this seemingly straightforward issue. As we repeat the patterns of the past and the last times and many times again, the repeating patterns, which are a period of arousal followed by a settling back into quietude for most of us, hoping that this time it will be different. This is what an addictive process looks like. It is what happens in families, communities, nations, who ignore a problem until you can't ignore it any longer and follow your personal pattern of outrage or retreat. Wait a while, then settle back into ignoring it again as you hope that someone does something this time. In personal relationships, this is what is called codependence. This is a form of withdrawal. And I was touched when I found this, because actually just last week I wrote a piece, and I just want to, as I'm shifting, this is just a short piece that I wrote. I don't think we are shy of any number of good ideas. I think the flies in our ointment are what it takes to put our good ideas into practice, particularly long-term practice. In my experience, the human race as a whole is susceptible to complacency. In one light, it's quite a bit like trying to break the destructive cycles of addiction in a family. When the destructive effects of the addictive behavior get bad enough, everyone in the family yells, "By God, this stops," in various ways, depending on each person's role. And everyone says they're going to make that change this time. About the time the necessary changes in behavior start to take effect, the problem doesn't feel as pressing. It is not in our face. And we say, "Oh, there's no reason to take all of that effort today. There's no reason to continue those steps. Everything's fine. It's not happening now." Was it really all that bad? Seriously, we might need the equivalent of a STEP program, dovetail to breaking dysfunctional cycles of racial and cultural inequity, with an emphasis on healing the imprints from the origins, which go back to the founding of this nation. This emphasis would, of course, not only encompass the massive levels of healing necessary for the African American versus European dynamics, and equally American Indian European dynamics as well. Processing the stories and making the changes spiritually and energetically are key to realizing the changes and transformation that will last in the human experience. The very interesting key to that paradigm that so applies currently is that if we're truly working the program, making the other people involved responsible for our feelings and our circumstances stops. And it is an inside-out job. When each one of us in this nation gets clear that the other guys are not what is wrong with our personal experience of the world, that each one of us is responsible for ourselves in keeping with the source of creation as the source of our lives, each of us can most effectively own and change our part of the overall collective. We hear, this is back to Jim Lockard now, we hear that racism is systemic a lot, which is, but I wonder how many people fully grasp exactly what that means. What does systemic racism mean? It means that racism is an integral part of our societal systems, that our society, as it is constructed right now, cannot operate without racism. What would make you think that this integral part of our society would simply fade away and vanish just because we want it to? It is interwoven into our culture like different threads of a loom. Pull one out and the whole fabric disassembles. Eliminating something integral means taking the whole system apart and reweaving it with something different in its place. Much like we know about our belief systems, we take out what we don't prefer and we put in what we prefer instead. Until we are able to see this systemic issue for what it is, we will remain in the constant loop of upset and ignorance and continue this destructive pattern of withdrawal. My experience of racism has been through the eyes of others, minorities with whom I have known or read about. I have never had the experience of racism directed at me. I do not know what that experience is intimately like, but I can only imagine few things worse. And there are many, many ways which racism affects people that might not ever even notice, as they are so embedded in our societal system, which benefits each of us who are not being directed at. I used to make this mistake out of ignorance, of thinking that racism was about overt acts of being mean to people. But it is much, much more than that, often blending with what appears to be kindness. Calling for increased kindness speaks neither to the oppressed or the oppressor. Neither sees kindness as a pathway to their goals. Being an example of kindness is another matter. Developing the inner strength to be consistently kind, even in the face of contempt, is worthy of our ambition and attention, even a necessary one. Can I be prayed up enough to be kind whenever possible, and to stand up to the bigotry and injustice when I see it? Can I speak for the oppressed, speak truth to power, speak to those who commit injustice acts firmly, assertively, but from a loving heart? And what about my anger? When and how can I make a difference? And this next quote is from Reverend Richard Rohr. Anger is a necessary, appropriate, and useful response to this kind of injustice. It is the beginning of social critique and helps us to protect appropriate boundaries for ourselves and for the world. You get anger that can be dangerous, however. When it hangs on too long, it becomes self-defeating. Then it distorts the true message, and we can become so intent on pointing out the problems that we are never actually willing to be a part of the solution. As I like to say, the best criticism of the bad is to practice the better, the good, not additional criticism. The question of true conversation and solidarity is, how can I work through my anger and get to the other side so that I can be a life-giving presence with and for those who are suffering? For oppressed communities, however, anger can be a form of survival, a stage on the path towards healing. Listen to such anger with compassionate friendship, and it can itself be transforming. I will continue to be a voice for justice. Oh, this is back to Reverend Jim. I will continue to be a voice for justice, for love, for unity, and for compassion in my way. I pray today for the residents and the police involved in all these affairs, and the people involved in their families, their extended families, and for all of us. I trust that you will find your role to play in healing our society in the unfolding and evolving of human history. Begin with prayer and move outward in action. And then I have a few quotes from Reverend Dr. Ernest Holmes. May peace prevail on earth. May we together build our beloved community. One's mind should swing from inspiration to action, from contemplation to accomplishment, from prayer to performance. And this is actually from a different minister. As a New Thought minister, I cringe when I hear someone say, everything happens for a reason. There is a misleading connotation in that statement that smacks of kismet or fate, which rules one's self-determination out. However, what I hear, and I believe the statement is meant to say, is that everything in effect has its equivalent cause. Every person is surrounded by a thought atmosphere. This mental atmosphere is the direct result of thought, which in its own becomes the direction for that cause, and which then becomes the cause of the effect, and that which comes into our lives. Ernest Holmes. We contemplate our intentions, play with them, expand them, deepen them. We allow our deepest intuitive wisdom to be free of our ego's need to limit the access to the unknown within us through rigorous and regular spiritual practices. We vision and envision, we seek and explore, we love and connect with each other. The mystic within us sees through sacred eyes, as we do our spiritual practices to remove the scales of limitation, fear, and cynicism. We emerge as a new level of evolutionary being, one suited to confront the greater challenges and to respond with strength, wisdom, and compassion. As we mature spiritually, we become and come to terms with these difficult ideas, and we learn to trust the wisdom of deep living systems of which we are a part. New life arises and old life expires. New forms arise and old forms dissolve, all along with universal living systems that are unified and flow and grow together. When we are in tune with our immune systems at every level, we can facilitate the healing for ourselves and for our communities. And this is true of physical forms that we live in and for the forms of our society. Let us awaken to the emergence, recognize it, celebrate it, and come into deep harmony with it. That was Reverend Dr. Jim Walker. This is exactly the position that modern philosophers and spiritual teachers take. It is called the theory of emergent evolution, which means that when nature needs something, it demands it of itself and out of itself. Reverend Dr. Ernest Holmes. And to that, I simply say, Amen. So that was a lot, and I think might be really nice just to sit for a minute. Let's just take a pausing breath. Settle in and take what works for you and leave the rest. And it would be lovely to begin opening our time for sharing. Just take your time, and I'll be watching, and Vernon will help you unmute. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, my goodness. Thank you, Pat. I did that thing where I just rolled right along. So Pat is going to lead us in a fabulous meditation, and then we'll do discussion.
Now that I'm thinking of it, maybe let me ask this question. Do you think we should do this meditation after we share and end with that? I'm seeing yes from Susan. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
And just cue me when you're ready.
And that will be as we, as we know that people are complete. Fantastic. That feels really good. So does anybody have anything on their heart and mind?
Meditations where we meditated on images that I suggested, and you closed your eyes and called them up. And we haven't done that in a long time. A lot of people really liked that meditation. So what I thought would be appropriate for today is that we do one, only we change the people we call up to groups that are experiencing things. And I've changed the words a little bit to the response to who I ask you to call up, and you'll see it on your chat there. There are actually 4 sentences, and I will say each one for each group and leave a little space between so that you can say it yourself, repeat it back. And then I'll ask you to call up another group of images. And when you get to the second group of images, you just kind of like in your camera or your phone, you swipe them to the side and call up the next one. And just know that we are sending love and peace and tolerance and compassion to people everywhere. That is the ultimate goal of the metta meditation. So here we go. Let's get comfortable, relaxed, little deep breaths to center yourself, eyes closed. And we start by knowing there's one God and that we're all one family united together. And the first image to call up is the image of yourself. And see in your mind's eye who you are today as a child, a teenager, a young person. And look at that image. Wrap it in kindness and say these words. May you know love, respect, and freedom May all your needs be met. May you feel protected and at peace. May you live with health, happiness, and grace. Next, I ask you to call up an image of your family and your neighbors. It'll be a big group, but these are people you know and are close to. See those images pop up in your mind and surround them with all the love and forgiveness and tolerance and peace that you can muster. And say these words. May you know love, respect, and freedom. May all your needs be met. May you feel protected and at peace. May you live with health, happiness, and grace. Let your next image be of neighbors you don't know in your city, your county. Some of them seen in random ways, many unseen, never seen. Imagine them as they are day to day and wrap them in warmth and acceptance and let them feel the love you have for them. And say these words. May you know love, respect, and freedom. May all your needs be met. May you feel protected and at peace. May you live with health, happiness, and grace. Next, I ask you to bring up the image of those who are suffering and fearful due to the coronavirus. They're all ages, from the very young to the very old, every age in between. There are those people in nursing homes, in prisons, the elderly at home, those with pre-existing vulnerabilities that don't know exactly what's going to happen, and they're scared. Imagine that group, and with the tenderest of thoughts, send them love, kindness, reassurance, support, and say these words. May you know love, respect, and freedom. May all your needs be met. May you feel protected and at peace. May you live with health, happiness, and grace. Our next images should be of our African American friends, known to us and unknown, here at home and across the nation, who are speaking out and demanding to be heard. And we are listening. May this be the last time they must shout to be heard and understood. Wrap this group with as much love and peace and understanding, compassion, kindness, and say these words. May you know love, respect, and freedom. May all your needs be met. May you feel protected and at peace. May you live with health, happiness, and grace. And our next group is for souls across the world who are marginalized due to circumstances beyond their own control. It may be due to poverty, abuses of all kinds, violence, genocide, hatred, the general non-acceptance of other ethnic groups, unlawful confinement, uncontrolled disease, xenophobia, apathy and intolerance, and other reasons. And it is a large group, but we can surround them with understanding and helpful support and love, compassion and peace. And look at this group as you embrace them and say these words. May you know love, respect, and freedom. May all your needs be met. May you feel protected and at ease. And may you live with health and happiness and grace. And our last group is beings everywhere. Those people everywhere on the planet, in every socioeconomic group, in every race, ethnic group, everywhere, every person, all beings. Some are just getting up, some are going to bed, some are living in chaos, and some are living in happy environments. They all have a story. They're right outside our doors or far, far away, but they are a family. Wrap this group with the love that we know is in abundance within each of us. Wrap them with peace and freedom. Wrap them with the kindness and understanding and forgiveness that we have so deeply and crave so deeply within ourselves. And say these words. May you know love, respect, and freedom. May all your needs be met. May you feel protected and at peace. And may you live with health and happiness and grace forever and ever. Amen. So it is. Thank you for joining me there. I think now we,
Yes. Sorry, Pat, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think now we go to Tammy.
And this is the prosperity part of our service. We appreciate all donations and all thoughts and all prayers. And our affirmation today is short, and it is, you've said it with me before, and it means everything to me. I will say it, and then we'll say it together. If the only prayer I say today is thank you, it is enough. Okay, if you'll share with me, if the only prayer I say today is thank you, it is enough. And I know Vernon's going to put up our address for mailing, and you can also donate through our webpage. and all donations are greatly appreciated. And I thank you. I'm also going to skew right into announcements. We only have one announcement today. It's a pretty important announcement, and that is that our board meeting is going to be this Wednesday, June 10th. The time has changed. It will be from 5 to 7. You're all welcome to come, attend. We would appreciate all your input. We want to keep this a viable sharing with everybody interested. So if you want to come, please do. We would appreciate it. And you would use the same Zoom link as you used today for service. So nothing's changed in that respect.
So what do we do?
Now over to Vicky for closing.
So I want to acknowledge we don't normally go over. And so just naming that we know that's happened and we appreciate any commitments you all need to move on to. I'm going to do a brief closing prayer and then we're going to have closing song, and that will be our service. And I just want to say, in keeping with the special atmosphere of today, when I get to the realization of this prayer, it's actually going to be an offering from another writer. And I think you'll understand as I get to it. So just taking that pausing breath for yourselves and knowing that we're breathing together, creating that space to shift from the exquisiteness that has been into the opportunity to speak the word in affirmative prayer. I recognize the one life that is omnipresent source, our Mother, Father, God, as the all that is all, and knowing the case that we are unified and feeling that in this moment so doubtlessly. We are one with each other. We are one with our source, mind, heart, and soul. And from that alignment, I realize that I have a promise to myself, originally offered by Christian Larson. I promise myself to be so strong that nothing can disturb my peace of mind. I promise myself to walk in health, happiness, and prosperity and offer that to every person that I meet. I promise myself to make all of my friends feel that there is something worthwhile in them, to look at the sunny side of everything and make my optimism come true. I promise myself to think only of the best, to work only for the best, and to expect only the best. I promise myself to be just as enthusiastic about the success of others as I am about my own success. I promise myself to forget the mistakes of the past and to press on to the greater achievements of the future for myself and for everyone. I promise myself to wear a cheerful expression and give a smile to every creature I meet. To give so much time to improving myself that I have no time to criticize others. I promise myself to be large and relieve myself of worry, to be noble and to forgive anger, to be strong and forgive fear, to be happy and to permit presence of trouble as challenges and opportunities. I promise myself to think well of myself and to proclaim this fact to the world, not in loud words, but in great deeds, to live in the faith that the whole world is on my side, so long as I am true to the best that is in me. And so it is with profound gratitude for this entire experience and for the innumerable gifts offered, we simply say, thank you, presence of life, and release it to let it be, and so it is.